Time to look at another example where we're going to correct an image and look at shadows and highlights as well. I have this graphic from a royalty-free website called your.com, and this image has very bad shadows and highlights. So what that means is the blacks are not really black and the whites are not really white. Sometimes you're going to want to bring this out so you have like a really crisp, clean image. And this is really important if you're going to do photography work. Like people that work at National Geographic know their shadows and highlights really well. So let's look at that a little bit. I'm going to unlock this layer by double clicking on it and hit OK. So right off the bat, I'm going to go to my image adjustment. I'm going to go right down to my shadows and highlights. And let's see what happens. Right when I click it, you're going to see that it changes. So what this allows me is the option to play with my levels of my shadows and highlights. So the amount of highlights is the amount of white. So I'm playing with that. I'm making it a little bit darker in this case. And then the other one is my shadows, which talks about my black. So I'm adding like white to my black. So you can see that I don't want to do that, but I do want to increase the white a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit more of a tonal value. So I'm just going to hit OK for that. So now let's look at another trick using shadows and highlights. And it's called my curves. So I'm going to go adjustment curves. And it's going to bring out this wild histogram. This histogram has a lot. I have blacks here, white on the end. You can see that all my color value resides here. So I can initially just bring down this point so that it reveals a more vivid, because right here I have no color values. I don't have a full spectrum of my graphic. So right away, if you unclick, you can see that there's a bit more of a vibrance already within this graphic. I'm going to create another node here and just play with some of the values. So you can see now I'm adding more depth to my shadows in this case. So if you look at the mountain, you have like a murky black, and in the trees, the black is not very, it doesn't stand out much. So when I do that, you can see now I'm getting more shadows on my mountain as well as on my trees. So right here, as I said, this is the black value. So if I bring this down even more, you're going to see I'm adding just maybe too much black to the spectrum. Here, let's bring this down. Let's see what happens. These are finite adjustments for sure. And this would make someone at National Geographic make a lot of money, is their ability to just make an image pop. So I can preview. So I definitely have like way more detail. If you look at down here on the shrubs, when I hit OK, it just looks like this image is more alive. So I'm going to hit OK. So now let's look at another feature that talks about similar aspects. So I'm going to go adjustment curves again. Curves is very powerful. You have almost everything you need within your curves panel. The only thing is it comes with a little bit of practice. Instead of RGB, I can just speak to the reds, the greens, and the blues. So for the blues in this image, I'm really not happy. They look really muted. So if I look at the blue values here, I'm going to say I need to take out some white. So I'm going to drop my value, maybe not that much, for white. Mountains aren't usually that blue, so let's maybe try to make the mountain range look a little more mountainous, but keeping the color of the sky blue. Because this image wasn't taken with maybe the best camera, but if you can see now, I've taken out a little bit of the oversaturated blue in the mountains, and I still have my blue up in the sky. And it's a little bit nicer of a blue. But now, since taking out the blue, I've added a lot of yellow. So you can see my bird is very yellow. So I'm going to look at that channel, which I'm going to target. I'm going to target one other way. So I'm just going to hit OK. So now another quick little trick. I'm going to go Adjustment, Hue and Saturation. I'm going to open up that panel. This panel allows me to change the hue and saturation of my complete image, or I can just pick the hue and saturation of a certain color. So for the yellows, there's just too much yellow. I'm going to select that, and I'm just going to bring down the saturation a bit and hit preview and unpreview, and you can see now a little bit less yellow. So the bird stands out a little bit more. I'm just going to open up the original. So this image has far too much white. Compared to this one, I'm bringing down the whites a bit, and I'm making sure the blacks pop out. But I still have a lot of nice detail in the white on my graphic, like in the feathers and stuff. So this is just a little bit of color correction that can go a long way with showcasing your artwork, making it pop,